And I'm back. More Breath of Fire 2. Happy to finally use blue again, at least for this little bit. Because I gotta use Spar in the next spot. But hey, at least for this upcoming dungeon, blue's back in the party, which means we're just gonna blow through everything. But yes, we have to go inside the queen's body and destroy the fatty. Yes, we're essentially liposuction. Okay then, whatever. I said this was weird in the episode prior, so whatever. The mushroom will shrink all of you. Then I'll use magic to send you into the queen's body. You'll fight the evil fatty in the queen's body. Must defeat all of them. Go in and out of her body, just talk into the mirror, and I will bring you out. You can also look outside with the mirror, so be careful with it. I'm going to send you into her body now. Are you ready? Here we go! Ah! Yes. But yes, we're inside a body. And we're just fighting hemoglobs or other things. This will be very, very basic and very, very easy. Like that. But hey, it's free experience, so get ready for 30 fucking fights of this shit. Oh boy. So what do you want to talk about? Funny enough, I didn't really have a plan. But, I guess now's a time to talk about Breath of Fire in general and kind of why it is. Here we go. So if you get to a spot and you beat it, you clear it out and you get the sleepy guy. Breath of Fire in general. So I've said before that Breath of Fire should be a game that sticks. But Capcom should have kept it, should have kept going, shouldn't have stopped. And that's right. Because why would you stop? Maybe it didn't sell. But that's no excuse because there's a lot of other games that have come back. And I do think Breath of Fire is now in that mode kind of like Xenosaga, Xenosaga 1 through 3, where it's like, when are you going to bring it back? Because almost every other game that has existed, we thought Final Fantasy VII wouldn't be remade. Then 25 to 30 years later, it's back. So, or 20 to 25 years later, it's back. So, Chrono Trigger is kind of in that same mode. Like, Chrono games, Breath of Fire games, they're kind of now in that, when is their turn? But Breath of Fire is weird because it's good, but it's not great. I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean it in a way of... You don't have to keep reminding me. It's a way of telling you... This is what it is, like you're seeing it with this game specifically. Like, the encounter rate's kind of ridiculous, the translation's all over the place, the battle system for what it is. I mean, the characters are unique, but nothing here is what I would say is gonna just run away with, transcendence, and the story is pretty basic, and you're mostly just doing stuff. And I said this with Breath of Fire 3, like, it's like the perfect B+ experience. And sometimes that's all you need, and I think that's something that we forget sometimes, is that we, as consumers of product, need games like this to set a baseline of competence so that the things that are transcended, say the Final Fantasy, the mid-tier, the mid-era Final Fantasy games, the Persona games, at least the ones that I like, and not everybody's gonna like it. But, for a more recent example, like Clair Obscur. Clair Obscur, for instance. That was considered a transcendent game, and for a lot of reasons, and, some people like it, some people don't. I had this thing with Legend of Dragoon, some people like those, but I would put this in that same sphere. Legend of Dragoon is not amazing, and it was certainly frustrating in its own way. And this game shares some similarities, especially with its encounter rate. And the fact that I can't use the exit spell in certain spots, right? But even the better Breath of Fire games, they're good and they have good stories, like 3 and 4 are considered the best ones. And you could say whether you're partial to 3 or 4, it doesn't really matter, they're both really good. But there are things that do enough. Things add up. Because everything matters in an experience. And we get so hung up on certain things. Ugh. That area is clear. Okay. We get hung up on, it's got to look right, it's got to sound right, it's got to do right. When, at the end of the day, are we enjoying the... I think they meant go down right. So I'm gonna go the other direction. What I mean is, there are certain aspects of a game that can sometimes, like, carry an experience that help it along that in other cases probably shouldn't be. One of the things that I remember is something like Nier Automata. I did not like playing that game at all. I've said as much. And I'm one of the weird ones, I think. I didn't like the side questing, I didn't like the gameplay, I didn't like a lot of things about Bravely, or not Bravely, but Nier Automata. But the music, the story, and the characters. Sometimes they're so good that they mask some of the other things in the aspects here. Breath of Fire, specifically 1 and 2, didn't have a lot going on story-wise. And what you kind of see in 1 and 2 are just their first attempts at an RPG, because this was made by Capcom, and Capcom, didn't have the RPG chops that a Square or an Atlas would, define themselves as. They were into Street Fighters and Mega Mans and other things and whatnot. But they were okay. And okay in a lot of aspects. But the same thing applies here. Like, I like this game because... Ow. I'm gonna need to heal myself. I like this game because... it's pretty simple, but the characters that I do have, they do have some story behind them. Cat is an interesting person. in the sphere of a... Because she's not a damsel in distress, and really neither is Nina. She's more ostracized. She's not the typical, I'm a white mage, I'm a healer, I'm a whatever. No, she's a... Like, all of these three female characters are like ass kickers in their own way. And of course, Blue is just Blue, and she's Dace. If you've seen Dace in one thing, you've seen her in a lot of things. You know, mischievous, you know, sort of immortal being that can just do no wrong because she's awesome. You know, so she fucks around with people. You know, Kat just beats shit up. Nina, you know, her story has yet to come. Kat's main story is yet to come. But I think there is good stuff in there, and, you know, we saw with Sten. This is a decent enough story. Jean, you know, not everybody's a winner. You know, Bo is the same way. Not everybody's a winner, which is why I'm not using them. But when some characters have better stories than others, you gravitate to them. And I think that's enough in a game to carry it. And is this gameplay going to win any awards? No. But I do like that it has a counter system, it has a special attack system, it has some unique abilities for how basic it is. And to be fair, 3 is where I shine, and 3 has the dragon system. It has the ability to kind of gather abilities from enemies, all sorts of fun stuff that you can do with 3. Of course, the fishing minigame. Like, I'll gush over the minigame forever, but then again, it has stuff like the Desert of Death, which did not work out as a set piece, because it was very boring. Or Nina 3 is one of my least favorite characters. Not everything in a game has to succeed for it to be a good game. You just have to be aware that, can you live with that? Can a game live with itself despite its issues? And I think when a game does that, it succeeds. Chrono Cross is another example. Going back and playing it recently, I'm not really the biggest fan of it. I don't hate it, but I also recognize that it just exists in its own way. But the music is like some of the best music ever. Some of the characters are interesting, though I wouldn't call them the best, because there's only so many characters that are good, because they don't do enough with the other characters that exist. But Chrono Cross also succeeds in, you know, ambiance. It does not do well with, like, the battle system. I think it was a system that could have used a little more refinement in the element system, and being able to, like, I would have preferred being able to level up rather than, oh, you use a strategy to defeat a boss and you're good and you do the thing, and it's, you know, shit like that. So replaying it, you know, but via the remaster is a little better, because I didn't need to go this way. Playing it via the remaster allows me to dodge a battle if I want to. You know, I'm allowed to skip a battle if I'm having a difficult time of it, or bullshit like that. It's personal choice. But the original, you kind of had to hoof it through some of the harder boss fights, and it wasn't really fun, and shit like that. So, I always kept Chrono Cross at kind of an arm's length. The same is kind of true here, but for different reasons. Just because the characters and story aren't amazing, but they're good enough. You know, Breath of Fire 3, I think, had solid story, but none of the character interactions are the most amazing thing. But I said this when I played 3. The final boss was one of the more interesting interpretations of a final boss I'd ever seen. Some of the bosses not so much, but the final boss and her motivations were very understated and, you know, not coming from a place of malice, but fear and misunderstanding. You know, it's something that I come back to. Breath of Fire 4. A lot of people like Breath of Fire 4 because they expand on the combo system, they expand on the dragon system, but they do it in a different way. But you have more reliance on your party as characters doing things. Okay, so let's go back to the down left. So it feels a little more, I would say, specific to its needs. Like, the game is allowing you to mess around with more. Trying to find a way to express it. By using your characters more effectively, you're synergizing your effect. So you're not just kind of reliant on, here's your party, they do specific things, they're done. You're allowed to intersect and intertwine and work around. Oh, I'm back in the spot I didn't want to be. You're allowed to kind of work around characters and use their strengths and their skills to better effect, because the combo system is quite intensive. But the other, 4 has other issues, like the map. The map navigation's a little more problematic because it's topping, like, a lot of exits and entries are topping in on themselves. Rather than a straightforward path to left and right, you're going up, you're going down. A lot of areas are closed off. A lot of areas are weaved in and out. It feels more like a puzzle to try and figure out where you're navigating. I'm also not a big fan of the aesthetic. I mean, normally I would be, but the ancient Japanese or Chinese aesthetic, I don't know, doesn't jive with me like I normally would. Probably because it's just kind of politically charged. And I've always been kind of iffy on political intrigue Political intrigue has never been my strong suit, my character, like, motivation. I like something a little more simple. I don't really care about the politics of a certain nation downtrodden. This is why I didn't like Final Fantasy XII, for instance. It's one thing if it's a corporate entity, like, I'm doing this for money. But if it's a world and it's a kingdom and I'm doing this for resources and I'm doing this for what? No, you need a strong villain to carry that sort of thing. And I didn't think the villains in 4 were all that strong. Like, Fao Lu is cool and all, but he kind of does his own thing. He's just there kind of destroying things, and the other main villains, like, there are some shocking moments, but I don't, like, get the same intrigue from them that I do from Miria in 3. Because her motivation is so unique, but understandable. And I also wasn't really as interested in the characters in 4, and I think characters make a big difference. That's why I'm so heavily into stuff like Persona or Yakuza. If a game has strong characters, it goes very far, because it means that I want to get through this to see their resolution. Do I care enough about their story? That's why something like Nier, I don't care about the gameplay. I just want to see what happens to the characters, and I'm going to talk about that later when I get to their when I get to a podcast about Nier Automata. I liked watching the story. I didn't like playing the story, if that makes any sense. I don't mind playing this game or 3 because I like the characters enough. You know, Momo, Ray, Tipo. You know, their stories. And again, you know, Gar's story. Because Ryu's story is pretty fucking basic. There's only so much he can contribute to a story because he's a silent protagonist. And then, you know, there's Breath of Fire 5, which tried very hard to be different, and I don't think people really enjoyed it. And then it was in that, like, it was its first attempt at full 3D, and I don't think it really worked out so well. So that's where Breath of Fire kind of stood. I didn't play the mobile game, so I don't know what Breath of Fire 6 was. A lot of people basically said it doesn't exist, so I'll trust their judgment. Whether it's a gacha game or just some mobile garbage, I'm like, no. No. But we're in that situation where Breath of Fire was never, like, the top-tier franchise of anything. Ooh, missile. But it was well regarded enough that it seems frustrating that it should have been bigger than it was. And I think it's one of those that the passage of time has looked well upon. And no, I don't want to do upper left yet. So that if they were to bring it back, I think people would really resonate with it. People would really gravitate to it because there is that sense, whether it's from curmudgeons like me who are only happy with certain games being certain styles, or say in the sense, I don't want this to become a Clair Obscur versus Final Fantasy thing, but it does tie into the point. There's an audience for every game style out there. We saw this with Dragon Quest III's remake. That sold a lot of money. Clair Obscur sold a lot of money. Final Fantasy games still sell a shit ton of money, but with them, because they're the biggest name, they have the harder time making hay. I think Breath of Fire existed in that, like, Lunar, Suikoden, you know, the mana thing, where they were well liked, but they weren't, you know, a Tales game, a Persona game, a Final Fantasy game, a Dragon Quest game, where they have to be really, really good because they have the standard. Alright, upper left. Just one more. But having more games is always better than none. And that's kind of the main point. Whether a company decides whether they think a game is worth selling or not, you know, that's kind of the issue with Xenosaga 1, 2, and 3. Namco doesn't want to go through the trouble of bringing it back because they don't think people like me are going to buy it. When people have been buying, you know, remasters of Dragon Quest 3 and Bravely Default and stuff like that, I think that flies in the face. You know, you give a game enough time, you give a product enough time, and you bring it back, but you do it justice without really trampling over its legacy, I think it resonates. Versus something like this, which is just a port where it's like, okay, I think this kind of sucks. I don't think anybody's clamoring for Breath of Fire 2 to come back, other than in ports like this, but I wouldn't be against, you know, changing it so that you could get rid of these fucking encounters or changing the translation, but, you know, people can mod that out if they want to. You know, I'm not saying make this a Final Fantasy VII style remake, I'm just saying remaster it and get rid of the quality of life issues and make it more like Dragon Quest III, and I think you'd find enough of an audience that you'd probably make a little money. And then Breath of Fire 3 and 4 is like a tandem package on like Steam or something. with... I don't know how you change that. Right? Maybe have the dialogue go faster, maybe have the story go faster, maybe ditch random encounters if you want to. You know, skip cutscenes, just things like that. You know, just standard quality of life that now exists that didn't in 1997 and 2000-ish. And open up the world to a new audience. Because there are people that have never played Breath of Fire. There are people that never played Final Fantasy, never wanted to play it, never wanted to experience it, but I get asked, which Final Fantasy games would you play? Which whatever should I try? You know, that's why stuff like the Pixel Remaster succeeds. They succeed because there are always going to be people curious. There are always going to be people curious about trying something. The guesswork is trying to figure out, is it enough to sell it? Did I do enough to incentivize the word of mouth? Because let's face it, Clair Obscur would not have succeeded if not for word of mouth, right? But that's a new IP out of fucking nowhere. But it showed that there's an audience for that sort of game. So that when something like Chrono doesn't get a remake, and there's just the, we might make it someday, we might not make it someday, but, you know, whether the new creator or the old ones come back or not, you know, or you get something like Visions of Mana, which did okay word of mouth wise, but they still shuttered the fucking studio. It's like, well, you can't win. You just made it and then you decided, nah, screw this, you know. So sometimes it doesn't work out either way. So maybe that's Capcom's thing. They'd rather not bother risking on a product like Breath of Fire 7 or remastering a game like this, which is maybe it's there, it's good, I guess. But being good, I guess, probably doesn't excite. Good enough, I suppose, and that's probably the same reason why, like, Phantasy Star has stuck with Phantasy Star Portable rather than wanting to make new ones since Universe, because all the resources have gone into the successful thing, which is the online game. But I sit here having played Phantasy Star 4, and I'm like, if you wanted to, you could make new Phantasy Star games and sell them, but they're content to make the online game. So, not every franchise succeeds doing the same thing, so fair enough. But there is still going to be that what if. Because there's a finite amount, sure. But the passage of time does make something grow fonder. And unless you have something enduring like a Mario or a Zelda or a Final Fantasy, you're always going to be that like, well, you could still exist, why don't you? And Breath of Fire is in that mode right now. And you do have that, but is it enough? Is it enough to say on Reddit, we want it back, we would play it, we would enjoy it, and we'd get other people to enjoy it because of word of mouth? I think people like me would go for it, but would a 15-year-old kid do it? I don't know. I was 15 when I played Breath of Fire 3, and I loved it. But I already loved JRPGs. What if somebody's coming into something playing, you know, Final Fantasy 14, and they're not into turn-based games, and they don't like it, you know? Because that could be a person's only frame of reference for an RPG is, or a JRPG specifically, is Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy VII. There's nothing wrong with that. but it also does sit there and you just think there is so much that is missing when that's all you know. But you can't just sit here and accept that unless you're already like, yeah, I'm good. You know, but you can't begrudge somebody if they don't play it. Alright, where do I go? You just have to accept that it's out of your control sometimes. There's only so many things a person can or can't do in their life, and they can't control, you know, someone else's actions. You can put out a product and yearn for it all you want, but if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, you know. Alright, where do I go? But would I love a Breath of Fire remake? Yes. But I'm not gonna sit here and say it would be the most transcendent piece of technology and the transcendent piece of creative gameplay I've ever seen, because that's never what Breath of Fire has been. It's been a serviceable, solid enough experience that I want to keep playing someday. Now, where in God's name do I go? Alright. Eventually I'm going to figure out which one of these I haven't done yet. So, my stance on it would be, I would love it if they had kept going, because if they had have kept going, we might have gotten to, you know, Breath of Fire 10 or Breath of Fire 11 by now. But maybe we won't, I don't know. But where... Alright, there must be a connecting pathway that I'm not seeing. Gotta be someplace I'm not seeing, because I've been here. I'm very confused. And back to the down left. I wonder if I go around and back around, I can get to... This is down left again. I gotta get back to upper left. Well, I'm going the wrong fucking way is what I'm doing. If that's down right. Ah! Speaking of things I need a map for. Wonder if I have to go from upper right to somewhere else. I don't know where I'm going. No, down right again. Do I go from upper right to upper right to left? Let's try that. Because I'm really losing it. If I have to, I'll just edit this shit out. I'm probably missing something so obvious. But yeah, let's try going around from the other side and see if there's a connecting, because I tried so many other connectors. Well, down right. Let's go around to the other end. See if I'm... Alright, this is upper right. At least it should be. Yeah, maybe it's over here. Alright, upper right. No. Oh boy. Alright, here's what I'll do. I'll stay off camera, I'll figure out where it is, and I'll get to that fight, and I'll edit this shit out. How's that sound? Never mind, I found it. It was a connector. So never mind, I don't have to edit shit. I just had to go in from the down right to find the upper left. Down right, down left, up left, in the middle. Okay, never mind. I'm not editing shit. So this was going to be a super long episode anyway because this game decided it would be, but whatever. I should be done after this. Yeah, this looks like it's the last chamber, you would think. Bonk. Ah, thank God. There, we got it. Thanks to you, the queen is saved. You will not become a demon. I've not been saved. Now I'm so thin I can't move. Don't worry, leave it to me. You sure have lost a lot of weight. I put a spell on you to gain some weight. You should be okay now. Huh? Just have her eat food. Isn't this strange? You're not as good as you used to be. Guess you can't fight age. How dare you! It must be hard for you to live on an island at your age. Why don't you return to the castle and live with us? After all, we need you to help the queen recover. Huh? Really? Well, that makes me happy. I never dreamed I'd be able to return. It's all because of you. I'm very happy. I thank you too. Thanks to all of you, I didn't turn into a demon. I'm a bit weak from being too thin, though. It really is thanks to Ryu and his friends. As a token of our appreciation, I will leave the treasure chest door open. Please take whatever you like. Be careful on your journey. Thank God. I am very happy that's over and done with, because I gotta go shopping. Ugh. Blech. Alright, so it's not behind here. But yes, I am very goddamn happy to have been done with that dungeon. But hopefully I got to talk about Breath of Fire at least a little bit. And kind of... Is that a water closet? No, is it? I've been hired by this castle as a guard. Well, good for you. I've heard of it. This is the therapy pillow. Please take it. Yay! Cool. Fucking hell. I never have to do that again. Alright, let's buy some of this stuff. What's worse is I didn't get any money. They didn't give me any fucking money for that. Cool, that's enough. Yay! Alright, let's get Spar back in the Nah. I'll keep Blue in the party, because I might level up after this sometime today. But I did the thing! Long, annoying dungeon! And I got to talk about stuff. So I'm good with that. So, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.